What's going on, everyone? John here from The Real Talk, back again with another review, and that is for Doctor Sleep, which is directed by Mike Flanagan and stars Ewan McGregor and Rebecca Ferguson. So, this movie is obviously based on the book of the same name, written by Stephen King, and that book's obviously a sequel to The Shining. So this is a sequel to the movie The Shining, which was directed by Stanley Kubrick, and because of everything I just said, this film had an interesting conversation going on online, right? A lot of fans were split and torn. They were kind of like, okay, well, is this going to be a direct sequel to the book, sequel to the movie? And we all know how Stephen King didn't really like Stanley Kubrick's interpretation of The Shining, so it was very interesting. And the reason why I was really excited for the film was not because of that. It's because, for me, I really love The Shining. The Shining is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and it's just, in general, one of my favorite movies. So I was really interested to see the continuation of certain characters, right? The story moving forward. And I think, in my opinion, Mike Flanagan did a great job in handling all that. And in my opinion, this is one of the best sequels that we had in years, and kind of an example of what a true sequel can be. I feel nowadays, in horror especially, a sequel, let's take them back. Let's just take a different family and put them in the Overlook Hotel and have the same events happen. You know what I'm saying? Kind of just milking it and stuff like that. But obviously it's Stephen King, and Stephen King doesn't really lend out his stories like that, right? And I feel like, obviously, if he's going to do a sequel to one of his works, it's not going to be like that. So I wasn't really worried, but I feel like a lot of people should take note, especially people making horror movies nowadays. It's just kind of, rinse and repeat, and I'm glad that Doctor Sleep wasn't that. I think Doctor Sleep was a fantastic sequel because it focused on Danny, right? We find out what happens to him a little bit after the events, sometime after the events of The Shining, and it's very interesting because for me, obviously, I'm a big fan of the movie, so all these years kind of finally, seeing what happens to that character, and I do understand that it's very different. I kind of glossed over the events and stuff like that from the book, and I know I want to read it, but for this review I kind of, okay, cool, let me understand some of the differences, and I know that The Shining was also different from the book. So Mike Flanagan had a tricky job in kind of saying, okay, what are we going to do a sequel to, right? Like or what are we going to adapt, a sequel to the movie or the book? And like I said, it's very different, but enough to invest me, a person who really likes The Shining, right off the bat. We, like I said, we get some stuff with Danny as a kid, but obviously he grows up, and it's very interesting to see what trajectory that he took, right? And it's very like, oh man, he's kind of, I don't want to give too much away. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed in my reviews, I could talk about the plot points of the movie and stuff like that, but for some reason, at least for like my experience with the film that first time, I didn't really know all this stuff, so it was cool to see that for the first time, and so that's why I kind of just try to not gloss over things, but kind of just tiptoe around a certain plot point. So we get to see how he has now become, and as a, not a fan, but as a kind of just, you care for the character right off the bat, and it's like, oh man, he kind of chose this path and stuff like that. But I feel like that is kind of essentially what makes the film work all the way through, because of what the themes and messages are, especially when we get the villain, which is played by Rebecca Ferguson, and I thought she was awesome. I thought she was amazing. I think she might be my favorite performance, but the little girl, and real quick, I think it's Kylie Curran. She was awesome as well, but Rebecca Ferguson, just every scene that she was in, it was just like a joy to see her in that villainous role, and she did an incredible job. But like I was saying, the path that Danny takes is also kind of a path, that the villain takes, right? Rebecca Ferguson's character, I think she's called Rose the Hat. And it's very cool how it's parallel, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of almost similar. And it just makes this overall story work. And that's, again, another thing that Mike Flanagan makes work. The story, he, again, from right off the bat, he makes you care for Danny, and also, or Dan, as he's now called, but also for the little girl. I believe her name, she goes by Abra, and how her story and how it connects to Danny and all that stuff. So, all around, I really liked the story and how Mike Flanagan makes you care about, those characters. And talking about filmmaking, the cinematography for this was just amazing. I really loved it. Every shot was like, not like masterfully crafted, but it was a very beautiful film. And I noticed in his work, he is very like selective in, I don't want to say he uses filters, but it's just unique. It makes you feel like you're watching a certain type of movie. I feel like he uses the cinematography and the colors to kind of build up that atmosphere that he's trying to create, right? And that's another thing that really stood out to me, the atmosphere of the movie. You obviously, nobody can really touch Stanley Kubrick and his work, but he does a great job of doing his own movie, but also paying homage to Kubrick in not of like copy and paste or something like that. He's not, you know, ripping him off or anything. He does his own thing, but still, okay, cool. Like, this is very something that Stanley Kubrick would do, you know? So I really appreciated that, along with the score. So cinematography was beautiful. The score was amazing, and it's one of my favorite scores as well, because I didn't really notice something that it did, and again, I don't want to give too much away, but when I did, I thought that was perfect. It builds up the tension and kind of the thrill of the situation, and it just keeps you on the edge of your seat just by doing this simple little thing. And I didn't notice at the beginning, but every now and then I'm like, okay, well, let me see how the cinematography is. Let me pay attention to that, or the score, or whatever. And I went with my cousin. I even was like imitating the score a little bit, and I kind of, hey, are you noticing this? And he did it right back to me. I was like, okay, cool. So I'm glad that we both were on the same page of the score. So that helps with Mike Flanagan's building of the atmosphere, kind of giving you that same feel of The Shining, you know, and that's why I really loved, like, that feel you have watching that movie is kind of eerie and kind of uneasy and kind of unsettling and stuff. But other than that, guys, I really like my experience with Dr. Sleep. I think it's a fantastic sequel. Again, a lot of movies, especially horror movies, should take note. And again, I just think that these characters and the story they're used in and presented to, and then the way you hear the title, again, I don't want to give too much away, Dr. Sleep, I thought that was a really cool moment. This moment has a lot of those little smaller character moments, and it can take a little bit of time to get to the, you know, bigger moments, but when it does, it goes 0 to 100 real quick. But I love those smaller moments. I love the runtime of this movie because I think it was necessary for the overall story. And talking about the ending, I mean, the ending was awesome. If you're a fan of The Shining, or just, you know, even if you are going into this movie curious, Mike Flanagan does a great job in setting everything up, so that way when we get to the third act, it's great. If I'm gonna nitpick though, I will say that the pacing's a little bit off in the third act, but I feel like overall what happens justifies it. You know what I'm saying? So that's just me nitpicking. That's it. You kind of feel the runtime at the end of the third act, but that's pretty much it. And I like the character decisions and stuff like that. I like the whole story overall. And I kind of just want to talk. See, this is the where I'm like, you know what? I want to make my reviews this way, but also want to talk spoilers. So, I'll just leave it at that. I just think that if you're a fan of The Shining, go watch it. Ewan McGregor is great. Rebecca Ferguson steals the movie, in my opinion. Kylie Curran is great as well. It's a great sequel. The cinematography and the score are fantastic. And overall, the world building that it did and added to The Shining was fantastic as well. So, guys, this movie is coming out in, I believe, a week or two. So, if you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. So, you know, opening day, opening night, I think it'll be a perfect movie to watch. But it did have an early screening. That's how I got to see it. So, if you guys have seen the film, let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section down below. If you guys want to follow us outside of YouTube, you guys can at The Real Talk with 2Ks on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. So, until next time, guys, I'll see you at the movies. Peace.